the American president once again trying to put up a bid that he should get credit for how India-Pakistan managed to bring a pause to the tensions, to Operation Sindoor, to the strikes and more. He's reclaiming again that he settled the conflict through trade. Now, this is despite the fact that India has constantly put out clarifications that no third-party mediation happened here. The USA and India had a conversation in the past few weeks, but that did not lead to the ceasefire. For now, we are told, remember, at this juncture, Donald Trump is clear. He wants to tell the world he's the one who's resolving all conflicts.
Trump's brother yesterday.
Donald Trump is at it again. Despite India repeatedly busting the US president's claim, Donald Trump has sought to take credit for the India-Pakistan ceasefire. This time in a meeting with South African President Cyril Ramaphosa at the White House on Wednesday.
I think I settled it through trade. We're doing a big deal with India. We're doing a big deal with Pakistan. And I said, what are you guys doing? You know, somebody had to be the last one to shoot. But the shooting was getting worse and worse, bigger and bigger, deeper and deeper into the countries. And we spoke to them, and I think I hate to say we got it settled, and then 2 days later, something happens and they say it's Trump's fault.
New Delhi insists the ceasefire was reached after Pakistani DGMO approached his Indian counterpart. External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar, in interviews to the Dutch, reiterated India's version of the event.
बुरी तरह पीटने के बाद इसी मजबूरी में 10 मई की दोपहर को पाकिस्तानी सेना ने हमारे डीजीएमओ को संपर्क किया। तब तक हम आतंकवाद के इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर को बड़े पैमाने पर तबाह कर चुके थे।
Currently on Europe visit, Jaishankar asserted talks are still on with the US for a trade deal. The minister said India is a very independent country and the US should understand that India's decisions are driven entirely by self-interest. While US President Donald Trump repeatedly claims American role in brokering a ceasefire between India and Pakistan, spokesperson of his administration have been less emphatic. Tackling Trump will be one of the key challenges for Indian diplomats in the coming days. Bureau Report, India Today.
Remember that External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar, the government and the top leadership, including Prime Minister Modi, already had given out clarifications on that. But just to be clear, the External Affairs Ministry again deciding to issue a statement on Trump's ceasefire repeated claim. Listen in.
Question of President Trump. See, I had made in the last briefing, I had made very clear, I had addressed this issue. Further to that, I have nothing to add, but at the same time, I would like to let you know that you are aware of our position, that any India-Pakistan engagement has to be bilateral. At the same time, I would like to remind you that talks and terror don't go together. On terrorism itself, as I had said earlier, we are open to discussing the handing over to India of noted terrorists whose list was given to Pakistan some years ago. I would also like to underline that any bilateral discussion on Jammu and Kashmir will only be on the vacation of illegally occupied Indian territory by Pakistan. And on the question of Indus Waters Treaty, I am again repeating myself, it will remain in abeyance until Pakistan credibly and irrevocably abjures its support for cross-border terrorism. As our Prime Minister has said, water and blood cannot flow together. Trade and terror also cannot go together.
And remember that this is not just about India or Pakistan. Donald Trump has been repeatedly saying this about Russia, Ukraine, for example, and how he's also mediating for Israel and Gaza. So he is clearly attempting to showcase his image that he's the one who's the peace mediator of the world right now. But the fact is, conflicts are still on. Let me now take you through an exclusive conversation. Donald Trump's former National Security Advisor John Bolton spoke to India Today's consulting editor Rajdeep Sardesai, and in this exclusive conversation he reveals how Donald Trump is trying to shape the story. And that is typical Trump. Listen in.
Donald Trump is making the headlines in India for the manner in which he virtually arrogated for himself, Mr. Bolton, credit for that ceasefire between India and Pakistan. How should we in India understand Donald Trump, particularly in the context of his involvement in the subcontinent?
Well, I think this is typical Donald Trump. In other words, this is the way he behaves with respect to pretty much everybody. He wants to be the center of attention. He thinks he should be the center of attention. As far as I can tell, being an outside observer, I think Trump and J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio were making calls and hope to bring about a peaceful resolution of the dispute between India and Pakistan. So I'm sure there were a lot of other foreign leaders trying to do the same. So everybody gets a little credit. Most credit goes to India and Pakistan for doing it themselves. But the fact that Trump didn't wait for statements from New Delhi or Rawalpindi shouldn't be surprising. He wanted to shape the story, and that's what he did. So, you know, as they say in The Godfather, nothing personal, but typical Trump.
You're saying typical Trump, but what's interesting, Mr. Bolton, you were NSA when Balakot happened in 2019. India did their airstrikes then on Pakistan in the aftermath of Pulwama. At that time, Donald Trump was not so directly involved in the action. He wasn't the one bringing the two countries directly together. Now in 2025, he's trying to take credit. What's the difference, you think, between 2019 and 2025, Mr. Bolton?
Well, I remember that night in 2019 very well. In fact, we were in Hanoi getting ready for President Trump's meeting with Kim Jong-un, the second meeting with North Korea's leader between the two of them, when I was informed in a call by then Secretary of Defense Mark Esper, really Chairman of the Joint Chiefs Joe Dunford, that things were heating up between India and Pakistan. Mike Pompeo and I were both in Hanoi in preparation for the meeting with Kim Jong-un the next day, and we were on the phone with a number of people, including Ajit Doval, Prime Minister Modi's national security advisor, and officials in Pakistan, as were our colleagues back in Washington at the Defense Department. And that situation calmed down fairly quickly. I think it's safe to say we were up late in the night in Hanoi, and we didn't wake President Trump up. We told him about it the next morning. So that could explain the difference between 2019 and 2025.
So remember, amid all of this, when Donald Trump made that claim about the ceasefire credit, he was sitting with someone. He was sitting with South African President Cyril Ramaphosa. And at the center of the conversation, that's also where tensions emerged. There has been, remember, reports emerging of violence with regard to farmers in South Africa and claims of violence against white African farmers in South Africa. President Trump expressed concern, saying many white farmers are fleeing the country, called the situation very sad and expected an explanation. Instead, President Ramaphosa not only rejected the allegations, urged Trump to listen to the broader perspective. And of course, there was a back and forth amid all of this. So that's one sensitive issue that was raised as much, and then a jibe thrown in by the South African president.
A lot of people are very concerned with regard to South Africa, and that's really the purpose of the meeting, and we'll see how that turns out. But we have many people that feel they're being persecuted, and they're coming to the United States. So we take from many locations if we feel there's persecution or genocide going on. And we had a lot of people. I must tell you, Mr. President, we have had a tremendous number of people, especially since they've seen this. Generally, they're white farmers, and they're fleeing South Africa, and it's a very sad thing to see. But I hope we can have an explanation of that, because I know you don't want that. It's a kind of a different meeting. Normally we have meetings, we talk about trade, and we'll be talking about trade and other things. But that certainly will be a subject that comes up, yeah.
It will take President Trump listening to the voices of South Africans, some of whom are his good friends, like those who are here. When we have talks between us on the around a quiet table, it will take President Trump to listen to them. I'm not going to be repeating what I've been saying. I would say if there was Afrikaner farmer genocide, I can bet you these three gentlemen would not be here, including my Minister of Agriculture. He would not be with me. So it'll take him, President Trump, listening to their stories, to their perspective.
Right, so now we'll see how Donald Trump's association and equation with the African nations goes here on as well. We'll be tracking more on that.